Good
Welcome.
evening.
Yeah,
Good
welcome everybody.
good late afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome newbies. Welcome OGs slash groupies or and those in between. Um, if you would, we usually like to do this, but just get the let's get the juices flowing a little bit here. Get the chatter going. Just put in the chat. Tell us where you are in the world and the graduating class of your student. So I know we're mostly talking to 26s here, but maybe we got some go-getters. Look at that jersey right out of the gates for you, Peggy. That's a
Of
good sign.
course.
That's a
And
good
there's
sign.
Seattle right after it. Double Seattles.
We got a special group here. Seoul, South Korea. There we go. Nashville,
Got a
Hotland.
Hoosier in there.
Yeah. Chicago. There we go. Yeah, very well represented geographically as we generally are. Yeah, it looks like mostly 26s here. Um, which you all are fully in it. Game time, officially, no doubt about it. So you're in the throes of it. But our hope here is to make this whole thing a little bit easier for you all, right? Take some of the the fear of the unknown. That's part of our job here is to just educate you, be the source of truth. That's something that, again, for those of you that follow along with us with any regularity, something we take a ton of pride in, try to cut through the noise. You're hearing all this stuff out there. What's what's accurate, right? What's right, what's wrong? Yeah, how does this whole thing work? But most importantly, how's this going to work for you? So we're going to get started and talk a little bit about how these changes in higher education are going to impact, again, you all, specifically changes from the big beautiful bill, and then we'll get into, well, what can we do about it, right? What should we do about it? So that's the get here tonight. My name is Matt Carpenter. I'm one of the founders at College Aid Pro. I'm here just north of Boston, at our kind of headquarters, if you will. This is my 20th year that I've been doing this, so I like to think that that makes me gives me the ability to answer most of your questions, I think. So, and please put us to the test there. We want you asking your questions tonight. Sometimes we'll tell you to put stuff in chat, but questions, put them in the Q&A because whichever one of us are not talking, we're going to be living in that Q&A, getting to as many answers as or as many questions as we possibly can. So again, that's a great opportunity. What's keeping you up at night here, right? What is keeping you up at night, right? Ask us those questions. We'll have the answers for you. This is my partner in crime. This is Peggy Keough. Peggy, a Jersey girl, if you didn't catch that from the beginning, by origin, but has had a couple different landing spots. We like to call her the fairy godmother of financial aid. But Peggy, you want to say hi and take us away?
Yeah, so super excited. Kudos to all of you for being here. As Matt said, we see a lot of 2026s, but you got 27s and 28. So it's awesome. You're not too early. The earlier you get into this, the easier it makes it. But yeah, for you 2026 parents, it is game time. Time to make decisions and build the list and all that fun stuff. So we know the journey that you're all on. I've personally been on it. I have twins who are done with college. They're both getting married in the next whatever 6, 7, 8 months. So they're way out of college. So I get it. I get it from a parent standpoint. And actually, the more you either let us guide you and support you in whatever way, or you just dig in as a DIYer and do it, just don't drift through this process because it can just make it a lot more stressful, a lot more expensive, stressful between spouses with your kids and the whole bit. Yeah. So my background's in the financial industry and I started focusing on only this, like working with people just like you guys to support you through this process, well over a decade ago, had my own business and then joined CAP like 4 years ago. So this is what we do. We educate you guys. Couple housekeeping things. As Matt said, we love questions. Please put them in the Q&A and we'll remind you if we see a bunch in the chat. We're going to tell you to, hey, put this in the chat, that's not a question. Go ahead and put that in the chat, but keep your questions in the Q&A. You can be anonymous. You click the little box, Some people like that, depending on the question. And we'll do our best. We're not going to get to every question. We just have too big a crowd. And some questions may be too specific that we just can't dig in that deeply. We would need to help you one-on-one, and we'll let you know. And we'll talk about how we can support you toward the end. And we're really good at starting on time and ending on time, so we do respect your time. And the most important thing, this is recorded. We get this question all the time, so if you get distracted or you want to hear it again, because we're going to cover a lot of stuff, no worries, you're going to get the recording and you'll be good to go. So let me share my screen, and let's get going here. So I think Matt, I don't know if he mentioned this, but he's one of the founders here at College Aid Pro, and we're very mission driven. And this bottom line here, empowering families to shop smarter for college. That's what we're doing tonight. We're educating you. This process can be, a parent said to me several years ago, it's really opaque. And I said, that's a really good word to describe it. It's opaque. You don't know what you don't know. And so that's what we're here for, to kind of like Matt said, be the source of truth. We know what we're doing. We know how this works. And whenever there's changes, like what I'm about to talk about with OBBA, like we dig in and, we talk to the source. I went to a conference this past June with all these financial aid administrators, really dig in so that we can keep you guys apprised and other professionals in the space. So here we are, the happy couple. Everybody got an email today. A lot of you guys that are our groupies, you're already in our club. You're doing your thing. You're off to the races. That's great. We can tell a lot of you already did this, but if you haven't, Matt's going to put a link in the chat. Set up your MyCap account. This is our software that is, it will guide you. If you look up here, this is the whole journey you're on, all along the top of the dashboard. We're going to take you on each step of the journey. So set it up. You can set it up for free, put in 3 colleges. Most of the stuff is free. And you know what? If you want to upgrade to premium, it's literally $4.99 a month. No contract, super, super cheap. And we'll talk about some of that stuff later, but please use this as part of the process. Because as Matt said, you want to understand financial aid, but the real important thing is, then where do we fit as a family? Where does my kid fit? Here, there, and at this college and this university and in-state and private. That's what really matters, and that's what we do. And we do it really well. So definitely set that up. All right, so let's talk about this one big, beautiful bill act. We're only going to talk about very few higher ed things tonight. This is a massive bill, but we're just going to touch on the stuff that we think matters for all of you. Okay. It goes into effect July 1st of next year. So you might think, all right, well, that's really far away. Why are you guys even talking about it? Well, this is the financial aid calendar. This will take effect for all you 2026 parents. It's going to take effect in your child's freshman year in college. So the forms you're about to start filling out in October, that we're going to talk about in a minute, some of these changes that I'm about to talk about, they're incorporated in that FAFSA. So it's not going into effect till then, but it's a little confusing, because really the FAFSA that you're filling out will be the one for this next school year. So it's now. You need to understand this stuff now when you're in this form. So Pell Grants, a lot of great changes. The maximum Pell, if you're Pell eligible, this is for lower income families, the maximum Pell didn't go down. The Pell is funded. There was a shortfall. Congress funded it. We're good to go there. To be fully eligible for the Pell, you have to be what they call a full-time student, which is 12 hours per semester. They were talking about increasing that, and they didn't once it got signed. So that's great. The Pell is used to pay direct costs, which is anything you're paying the school directly. They expanded what you can use the Pell Grant for. So if you have a child that's into like doing a trade and in certain programs, and they called it the Workforce Pell Grant program. So upshot is more places where you can spend the Pell if you're eligible. So that's a good thing. And foreign income is used. So if that's applicable to you, if you have a foreign income exclusion or you have foreign income, like you're an expat or something, that's going to be included in the Pell Grant calculations. Overall, great stuff with the Pell Grant. Matt and I were following it very closely in the House, and then it went to the Senate, and a lot of things that we were worried about in the House did not happen. So that's all good. All right, quick on loans. Main thing for all of you to understand the two first bullets. There's something called a subsidized student loan if you have need-based aid eligibility, meaning the government pays the interest until 6 months after your child graduates undergrad. It survived. They were talking about killing it. It's still there. So if you're familiar with that with an older child, or you have one in school and you also have a class of 2026, you can take a deep breath and blow it out and say yay. Okay, the subsidized loans are still there. The parent loans, and we're not going to get in the weeds on this is a whole webinar in and of itself. Those are going to be capped, so it's very the specifics you can see on the slide. What really matters, and I didn't mention this, but I'm a financial planner by background. When I came from the financial industry, that's how I roll each and every day and how I function. This is a massive thing to understand. You need to look at your costs for college in a 4-year window, and even more so because this loan used to be available to pay for everything all 4 years, which was dangerous, very dangerous, and now it's not, which is actually a good thing, but it's a new thing. So keep that in mind. And then you can see here, just in case you have a child who's ever since they were 7 wanted to be a pediatrician, and they still do, and they're 17 or 18, and they're going to go to med school, just realize there's caps on the grad plus loans. The grad plus loans are eliminated, and then the other graduate federal loans, there's caps, just like there are on the parent loan. So just keep all that in mind. There's other sources for loans, but they did cap it. Other changes, the main thing I think that matters to all of you is the first bullet and the last bullet. If you're a business owner, used to be that every business you had to value it. It could have been zero, but you had to value it, and you had to put that on the FAFSA. That was a new change. Now they've gone back to the old FAFSA version on this, which is good for business owners. If you're a small business, which is defined as less than 100 full-time employees and you're family owned, so at least 51% family owned, the value of your business you do not disclose. And for some people, that could be a big number. For some people, like when I had my own business, it was probably zero, but that's not always the case. So that's a big one. And when I jump to the last bullet, 529s, if you happen to be fortunate enough to be able to save, or you have grandparents that have saved in 529s for your kids, this bill actually expanded the what we call qualified education expenses. So that's how you pull it out, and it's tax-free, and it's a win-win. So that has been expanded. Again, kids that are going into trade schools and doing certain types of internships and stuff, now you can use that money for more things, which is a huge positive for families. The other things on here, the repayment plans, there's only going to be 2. We don't need to get in the weeds on that. And the colleges have some accountability. Their endowment tax is going to go up for a bunch of them, and they have to be careful that they don't graduate kids with huge amounts of loans, and they're not making even what somebody coming out with a high school diploma or a GED is making. The government's going to start tracking this, and so they need to be accountable, which Matt and I have talked about on our podcast, so shout out to that. It's called College. So go check us out on our podcast. We've talked all through this. So those are the main things around OBBA. Do you want to chime in at all, Matt, before I kick into financial aid?
I don't think so, because this stuff is like, okay, those are the rule changes. What can I do about it? So I want to focus our efforts there.
Yeah, yeah. So you know them now. So if any of that matters to you, jot it down, and that's something you should know about. So now we want to talk about, okay, so great. Those things are there. how does this whole thing work? Like when I told everybody, set up your MyCap account, those of you, a lot of you that we can already see are in there, you are already seeing this. And Matt's going to go in and show you with an actual family in a few minutes. So, what these sticker prices, this cost of attendance that I'm sure most of you know, the most expensive schools are over $100,000 now, which is nuts. It's nuts. But it is what it is. But it doesn't really matter. These costs of attendance are irrelevant. The colleges are all discounting. They're all on sale, if you will. It's just a matter of how they're discounting. And this is where the nuances, you need to understand that. But it's not just, oh, such and such school meets 100% of need. Great. That's great for my kid. And that might not be if your family has no need. So that's where you've got to go deeper to understand why that matters to your family or if it matters. So, three different ways they discount: need-based grants and merit-based scholarships. That's the free money. You don't repay it. That's what you want to maximize. Need-based grants, as the name hints to, you have to have financial need. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Many parents think, well, I don't have financial need. I'm not doing any of the financial aid stuff. We can talk about that. Matt and I will talk to you and convince you otherwise of why you should be submitting forms, and you might be wrong about your need-based eligibility. So that's the first bucket. That's going to be state, federal, but mostly from the colleges. We call them institutional grants. That's what you want to maximize from the schools. Then the merit-based, flip side, free money, like I said, but it's based on your child. You could be making Bill Gates sort of money and have that sort of portfolio, and your kid could still get merit-based scholarships because the colleges, they're doing what they do. They're discounting that sticker price. Sometimes they know you have the ability to pay, and sometimes they don't, and they don't care because they want that student, and it's all about the net revenue that they're going to make off of you. That's the way this works, right? They know they're going to have full pays all the way down to kids that they're almost going to subsidize the whole thing. The last bucket is self-help. So that's loans and work study. It's okay to have loans. Reasonable amount of debt is okay. That's another webinar topic. And then work study, of course, your child's getting a job, working, and you decide what you're going to do with that paycheck. So those are the ways that this cost of attendance gets discounted. The next question is, okay, are we eligible at any school for these need-based grants? So the way they figure it out, pretty simple equation here. They take that sticker price, they subtract this student aid index slash expected family contribution. That was the old term, but a bunch of schools are still using it, or they might even call it a family contribution. And I would bet that most of you 26s, your kids probably have at least one school that uses the second form that we're going to talk about. So we just want you to know that term. That gets calculated from the financial aid forms that you submit. They take the difference, and that's your need. So say the school costs 80, you have an SAI of 50, you have $30,000 of need at that school. That doesn't mean you're done and they just give you all those need-based grants. Most schools don't do that. That's where the devil's in the details and projecting what you're going to get from these schools. So let's go a little deeper into the student aid index slash expected family contribution. There's two main buckets here. There's assets and there's income. So on the asset side, biggest takeaway is it's non-retirement assets, not retirement. So 401k, 403b, Roth, pensions, that's all retirement off the table. That's one of the biggest mistakes people make. So for you 26 parents, hear me. When they ask for net worth of investments, you're not putting in your nice big balances in your retirement, okay? Because that'll shoot up your SAI and it shouldn't be in there. Everything else is on the table though. So that means checking and savings, CDs, stocks, bonds, anything that's not in a retirement registration in that account. College savings accounts, 529s that I talked about earlier. If you're the owner as the parent, which is super common, another way is grandparents or outside family members own it. But if you're the parent and you own it, then it's your asset, not your child's asset. And I'm stressing that because Student assets are assessed at 20 or 25% when this is calculated, and parents at most is a little shy of 6% if they're following the methodology. Big difference. So that's a common mistake too, and it's logical. I'm saving that for my child, it's their asset. It is not. In a 529, it's your asset. Grandma and grandpa own it, and your child's the beneficiary. It's not even on the FAFSA because they're not in your household. Um, if you have jointly held accounts, super common with minors, put it in your bucket. If you're on it with your child, that goes in your bucket, which is better. As I said, if you happen to have custodial accounts, which we have on the bullet here, UGMAs or UTMAs, that is an asset of your child's. There are ways to move that out of their name. That's a strategy conversation that we have to have one-on-one because there's tax ramifications. You have to see if it even matters for your family, but just keep that in mind. That's not the same as a 529. And then last thing with the assets is real estate. So any real estate you have that's not the home you live in, if you own your home or the bank owns part of it and you own. If you rent, doesn't matter. But if you own your primary home you live in, most schools aren't going to ask about that. But any other real estate you own, a second home, vacant land, a cabin, whatever it is, that is on the table. And that's the equity is what they look at. So that's market value minus your mortgage or mortgages if you have a HELOC or something. There is a group of schools that will look at the home you live in, about 250 schools, but the rest of the 3,000 plus do not. But it doesn't matter where that real estate is. If you, I always get that question. Well, it's in India. It doesn't matter. If you own it, it's part of your asset. So keep that in mind. Last thing with assets is it's literally the value of the day you hit submit. If you're that exacting and the market has a bad day, you want to go look at your portfolio, you put the lower value. Most people don't have the ability to do that, so they go off statements. But it's real-time value is my point. Now, income on the flip side is not current income. It's something that we call prior year. This has been in place since President Obama. It was a good change because it made it much easier for parents to submit these forms. You can see on the slide here, it's you think of the year your child, the fall where your child's starting, even if it's their sophomore or junior year in college, subtract 2, that's the tax year you're reporting on. So literally, you are going to be reporting, all you class of 2026 parents, when you submit that form, probably in October, maybe, it's going to be all about 2024. Long done. Hopefully you've all filed. Everybody should be filing. If you haven't filed your 24 return, get it in like immediately. It's going to be based on that. So class of 2027, it's going to be all about the tax year we're in right now. So try not to inflate your income. If you get a promotion, that's lovely, of course, but don't create capital gains, take distributions out of retirement accounts, things that you don't need to do that then you're then going to have to deal with the colleges on appeal to deal with that. It's mostly based on your adjusted gross income, and there's a few add-ins on top of it. Parental income is by far the biggest driver in this calculation. Student income would be a huge driver if kids made tons of money. They typically don't. And you can see on the slide here that there's an income allowance of over $11,000 for the FAFSA only schools, which means it's just a wash. If your child made $11,000 in 2024, they made zero, right? They just get credit for that 11,000. So usually most kids aren't making bank like that, way, $20,000, $30,000 a year. So not a big deal. So my guess is that some of you are looking at your dashboard, your MyCap, and saying, okay, I hear you, Peg. Yeah, we have some need-based eligibility, but there's probably a chunk of you that are looking at those numbers. You have them all dialed in, and they're high. Like they're over $100,000. So there's potentially no reality where you're getting need-based aid. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt now to talk about that middle bucket that I talked about, because all is not lost. Discounts go to affluent families all the time in the form of merit aid.
Awesome. So, Peggy, let me, before I dig in here, because we're already getting some questions around this, which is great. A couple things. So, Number one, again, just a reminder, put all the questions in the Q&A as opposed to the chat. That's where we are focused, the one place we're looking. I have a lot of kind of repeat answers here, and I promise I'm not being lazy. For some people are asking really specific questions. Hey, I'm a divorced parent. Which one should throw out the FAFs? Should fill out the FAFSA? I had one. I'm an independent contractor for a company. Does that mean I'm self-employed? I had another question along those lines, and I said, look, we would have to dig in further to your situation and get some specifics before we can make a recommendation. Okay. So I said, book some time to talk with us. Um, and so I said that to a few of you because that's the only appropriate way to answer that question. A whole bunch of others, I said, just set up your account, right? How are we going to know which schools consider home equity? How are we going to know which schools use the institutional methodology versus the federal methodology? Do you have a list of resources for scholarships? All the questions like that, I said, just set up your account because they're all in there and you guys can have the answers to all of those questions in 3 to 5 minutes. So if you haven't set up your account, do that because it's going to answer, most of your questions that I'm answering there. But I promise I'm not being lazy there. Those are just the appropriate way to answer those questions. So look at we got a bunch of you on here tonight. We got a bunch of you from regions of the country that are just generally have some level of affluence, and that means that a percentage of you're just not going to be eligible for need-based financial aid. Now, please don't disqualify yourself. Peggy and I talked about this on our podcast this week. I met somebody just a couple days ago that said, "Hey, I have a question. I know I'm not going to be eligible for need-based financial aid." And I said, let me just stop you right there. Can you just tell me your income? He said, yeah, it's about, 350, 400,000. I get about 100,000 saved specifically for college in a 529. And I get a lot of equity in my home. I had a couple other questions for him and then asked him the colleges. I said, just so you know, at the colleges that you just listed for me, you're eligible for $50,000 worth of need-based financial aid each year. And they're all these private colleges that cost about $100,000 a year. So if he didn't talk to us, he would have just assumed that he wasn't going to be eligible for need-based financial aid. He wouldn't have applied. He would have left $200,000 on the table, right? So please do not disqualify yourself. At least confirm, right? Set up your account and confirm exactly what your SAIs are going to be, and more importantly, what the particular colleges you're looking at are going to cost you. That said, some of you have already set up your accounts. I can see that most of you already have, which is awesome. And your SAI is 250,000, right? That's what they're saying you can pay for college each year. In other words, you're not eligible for need-based financial aid. It doesn't mean you want to start paying $100,000 a year for college. How do you get discounts? Obviously, well, what colleges are going to give you discounts regardless of your income? We're going to talk about, I'm going to show you exactly how to find out which colleges we'll do that for your family, okay? And exactly how much, right? And how to figure out which colleges that fit in that bucket that are also going to be good fits for your kids. So I'm going to show you in a couple minutes here. Sit tight there. A couple other talking points before I do. Some of these schools require that you complete the FAFSA and the CSS profile in order to qualify for scholarships. NYU is the example we always use because every single year historically it's one of the most popular schools. Popular, I'm defining that as the colleges that receive the most admissions applications. They're generally in the top five. Pretty stinking expensive school, but guess what? They offer merit-based scholarships. However, you are not considered. They will not look at your student's application. It doesn't matter if it's the most gifted kid in the world unless you've completed the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Don't leave money on the table, okay? It's also important to mention not every school offers scholarships, right? I know a lot of you have these incredibly gifted kids, and you're thinking, we're so lucky to have this incredibly gifted kid, and we're confident that we're going to get a return on, kind of that investment, so to speak, because they're going to get scholarships when they're applying to all these competitive schools. There's about 100 colleges in the country where scholarships don't exist, right? There's not one Ivy League school that gives scholarships, right? Nobody's walking around Harvard, or and it's not just Ivy Leagues, right? That MIT or the NESCACs, right? Bates, Bowdoin, Colby, Middlebury, Amherst, Williams, right? Nobody's at these schools on a scholarship. The last point that I really want to emphasize, and this is I find in my experience, it's not common knowledge. Okay, you have the, colleges at the end of the day. Yes, they're nonprofit institutions, right? Wink, wink. In other words, said another way, they're multi-billion dollar corporations that don't have to pay taxes. But these are very astute businesses. Okay, very successful very successful, businesses, and they're competing for their products. Who are the products? Your kids. Okay, we have to apply to competing colleges, right? If you come visit my backyard and you go to Boston and you love Northeastern, but you hate BU, if you're working with us or you're working with anyone on our team, we're going to make you apply to BU, right? We know you have no intention of going there, but guess what? We're going to use that offer. We're going to get a better deal at Northeastern, regardless of our income. Obviously, that's a one off example, but every single college has their direct competitors. We have to know who that is, right? Again, this, regardless if we're eligible for financial aid or not, this is a very smart strategy, but especially if we're not, we have to apply to competing schools and leverage them against one another. It's going to get us a better deal. Okay. Peggy, I'll share my screen if I could.
Sure.
So look at Peggy, we got a good crowd here tonight in the sense that just about everybody has created their accounts, which is friggin' sweet because you guys
Great.
are look at we say it all the time because it's true. This is your cheat code, right? This is your cheat code. All the questions we got tonight. Well, what are they going to look at Social Security? Are they going to look at my self-employed income? How are they treating 401ks or pensions? Put your information in here. First thing we're going to do, just front and center, is tell you here's what your SAIs are. Right now, to further confuse you, there's two types of SAIs, right? Most colleges, use the federal SAI. That means they only require the FAFSA. That means if you're divorced or separated, they only look at one household. That means they don't look at home equity. That means if you have a small business with less than 100 employees, that's not going to be considered in the calculation. The institutional SAI, there's more variables here, right? Most of these colleges, if you own your home, that's fair game as far as they're concerned, right? Boston College here, if your home's worth 600 and you owe 200, Boston College thinks that's a $400,000 checking account. Okay, that's how they're going to treat it. Some of the schools, like again, like a Boston College, like an NYU, like an Amherst, like a Connecticut College, like a Dickinson, if you're divorced or separated, split household family, they're going to require the information from both households. In many cases, if one or both of the parents are remarried, they're going to be looking at four sets of income, four sets of assets, etc. Now, you got a school like Vanderbilt here. If I'm looking at Vanderbilt, they're one of these schools that they use the institutional methodology, but if you're a split household family, right, you're divorced or separated, they only look at one household, similar to the federal SAI. I'm throwing a lot at you here, guys, but the point being, the takeaway is, and again, I've said this 100 times in the Q&A tonight. I'm sure Peggy has too. It depends on the college. Again, that's not a lazy answer, right? You would think Vanderbilt and NYU are very similar business models and how they give out aid. There's some overlap, but there are some huge differences, right? And I just listed one of them. Or there's an Amherst College, and you'd think they'd be really similar to, you know, uh, a Northwestern, for example. But guess what? Northwestern thinks your home equity is fair game. Amherst won't look at it. Okay. So I want to do, I'm going to show you, I promise I'm going to show you how to find out exactly which colleges are going to give your kids scholarships and how much. But before I do that, let's actually look at some particular colleges. Put in the chat some specific colleges, and maybe your kid's thinking about going ED, or you are going to go ED, or it's your alma mater, your top choice, right? Put in some actual schools in there, and we'll take a look at them. So the first one I saw was Puget Sound, okay, out in your old neck of the woods there, Peggy.
Yep.
Okay,
Great
so
school.
in Tacoma, Washington. So really expensive sticker price, right? 87,000. This school, but guys, if there's one thing that you take away from tonight, do not get hung up with the sticker prices of colleges. We only care about how much you're going to pay, right? It's going to cost you 54,000. That may or may not be within your eligibility, within your affordability range, right? If I want to take a closer look at a school, I can do that. Now it's going to tell us some important things: average GPA, average test scores, acceptance rate, right? Where does my kid stack up here? It's going to tell us here's how generous they are with financial aid, with scholarships, their business model. But most importantly, and this is going to vary based on, these are averages over here, guys. But we're going to tell you exactly how much you're going to pay, right? Not just year one, but all 4 years. This is very person specific. For every college in the country, We have every scholarship that they offer, the qualifications for each. We're really good at telling you this is what your kid is going to get, and here's why. Okay. And you can fool around with it too. You can say, well, what if my test scores go up? What if my GPA scores go up? Right. The let's see, let me just the another school I saw on there. MIT, well, geez Louise, it's hard to get in there, but man alive, are they good with financial aid? So this family, this is a Massachusetts resident, by the way, this particular family. So yeah, $92,000 sticker price, but we're going to pay less than we would to go to UMass Amherst. Okay, we're going to pay $40,000 there. Well, why is that? Okay, well, MIT is one of these schools where we can take a look here. No, they meet 100% of aid, right? So whatever your SAI is, that's what you pay. But guess what? This is one of these schools. Scholarships do not exist. 0% of students are there on a scholarship. So any college you want to see exactly how much it costs your family, fill out your account, put it in here. We're going to tell you exactly how much you're going to pay. Now, as you're finalizing your list of schools, I want everybody to do this, but especially if you're not eligible for need-based financial aid and you're like, look, I at least got to find a couple colleges that are going to give my kids some meaningful discounts here. So we can put dozens of filters in here, but let's just put a few to, for time's sake here. We know we want to go to a 4-year school. We want it to be pretty small. I think my kid wants to be, relatively close to home. And, they're thinking about majoring in whatever. Now, by the way, guys, you can search by the business model of the school, as in, are they institutional methodology? Are they federal methodology, FAFSA only? There's all, are they test optional, right? You can put anything you want in there, but I'm going to just put those couple of filters in there, and then I'm going to say, just go sort them based on who's going to give my kid the most in merit-based scholarships, right? And instantaneously, we'll say, look, I'm not eligible for need-based aid, but damn, I'm getting a $40,000 discount at Wheaton College. Nice little school, right? And kind of on down the list here. If we are eligible for financial aid, we can sort just based on that. Okay. And again, instantaneously, it'll rank order. Hey, these guys have the admissions criteria you want, but they're also really good, again, with financial aid, with merit, whatever it happens to be. And then the other thing that we want to look at, you're going to hear all the time, you are already from your school counselors, as you should be. You want your safe schools, you want your reach schools, you want your target schools. We want to make sure that you have that from an affordability standpoint too. And we do it like color by numbers, right? So here's the academic selectivity of the school, and then here's where it's going to fit in terms of the college's net cost and your budget. Obviously, we want to make sure we just are more weighted on this side of this kind of XY axis. We don't want too many schools that are highly selective and are going to be pretty far away, or at least in the caution part of our budget. So this is just, again, kind of the tip of the iceberg in terms of the platform, but you want to be living in here now as you're finalizing your list of colleges, or just starting to see, or just starting to put your list of schools together, right? If you're behind as a 26 or just starting as a 27 and 28.
All right, so let me talk about these forms. You guys are great. There's Matt. This is awesome. I
Yeah, we're
love
getting,
these kind of presentations because it's just like I'm busy, busy, busy.
yep.
I'm not twiddling my thumbs here. I'm in the queue, and you guys you're asking some great questions. Few of you, I gave you a link and said we'll talk about it at the end. Just chat with us, because we exist for a reason. There's some of this stuff is complicated, and it really depends on your situation. We need to know more. So. Let's talk about these two forms. Matt just said institutional, you can filter by, and I'm sure some of you are like, what the hell is he talking about? So let's get into this. So there's two different financial aid forms. The FAFSA is the main form, the free application for federal student aid. Almost every school in the country is going to require this, and they're going to decide on those need-based grants that I talked about way at the beginning based on what comes out of the FAFSA. They're going to give you, potentially your family and your child, those institutional grants based on that. As I said, it's all about tax year 2024 for class of 2026. 2027, it's about 2025. Every year you're going to submit these forms. So next year it would be 2025 taxes, 26, 27. So I think you can see the flow. This goes live to the masses. It's in a beta testing right now that people can get in, but don't worry about that. You can go in October 1, it's going to go live. We don't recommend you go in at 12:05 a.m. on October 1. Somebody put a really good comment in the Q&A and said, they're in DC and they have this tag program and it's really important to get your FAFSA in early. 100%. It was a great share with the group. That's the one time if you're eligible for state aid. And if you don't know, get in our software. Let us help you. We're going to help you. You're going to see SAIs. You're going to understand that a little bit better. We can work on you with you one-on-one. Our experts know the different plans in the different states and areas in the country. You might need to submit it right away. Key thing with the FAFSA, if you're divorced or separated, and there were some questions in there, only one biological parent is submitting the FAFSA, and that's the custodial parent, which is defined as the parent who provides the most financial support on a year look back from when you are hitting submit, not based on 2024. It's literally, if you submit the form on October 15th, it's a year look back from then. So this is a planning opportunity. If you're a 50-50 family or you're close to 50-50, try and figure out which parent is the best parent to be the custodial parent and make it happen. Have that parent spend a little bit more money. We help in this area ever since this definition came out a couple years ago. It's a gray area that Congress left. That's an opportunity for all of you if this is applicable to you and you're divorced or separated. So make the most of it. Let us help you with this. If the custodial parent is remarried, keep in mind that's part of that household. And it doesn't matter if they're helping, doesn't matter if you have a prenup. If you remarry, then that's the couple, if you will. That non-custodial biological parent is not included on the FAFSA. Key thing that you need to do now, if you have a class of 2026 child, is get your federal student aid ID, FSA ID. You can see the link here. Google it. It's going to be the first thing on your Google search, most likely. Make sure it's a studentaid.gov account because you have to put in your social security number and your date of birth to establish this username and password. Obviously, that's highly confidential information that you don't want it to be on a copy site that you're putting it in. Real-time approval for your FSA ID. That's a huge new change this year. You don't have to wait for the Social Security Administration to get back to you 3 to 5 business days. Should be right away. You're good to go. Your child needs this. If you have other kids, you have twins like I did, each kid needs it. It's their FAFSA. And then whichever parent is going to lead the charge on this, if you're divorced, it's the custodial parent is the one who's going to get the FSA ID. If you're married filing jointly, then one parent needs to get it. You don't both need to get it. If you went to grad school and you have one, you're good. It's based on your social security number. You don't need to get another one. It's per taxpayer, per individual. So that you can go ahead and get done right now. Save it somewhere secure. You're going to need it every year. So that's the FAFSA. October 1, if you're eligible for state aid, you want to be ready to roll with that. Okay. And we will do more webinars about that. So stay in our world. Okay.
Peggy, can
Yes.
I let me
Yeah,
bust in for a second because we're getting a
sure.
lot of kind of repeat questions that are along the same lines. A couple of them are asking if specific colleges are generous. The one I just wrote back to was Emory. That depends on your situation and all comes down to what your institutional student aid index is. Guess what? If your institutional student aid index is $8,000, they're unbelievably generous because guess what? You'll pay $8,000 to go there. Okay. If your institutional student aid index is $85,000, you're paying 85,000, right? If it's 150,000, you're going to pay about 100,000 full sticker price at Emory. So this is where again we are not being lazy with the answer when we say, again, it depends. And when people speak in generalities about, especially about specific colleges, that's when it gets dangerous, right? We talk to so many people that say, "Oh, I heard Northeastern doesn't give any money," or "I hear so and so is incredibly generous," and it all depends on your situation, right? So set up your accounts and you're going to have the answer, like I said, in 5 minutes for exactly how much you're going to pay for Emory. The other similar questions are, how do I know who considers home equity? How do I know who considers both parents, in the calculation? Again, it's all baked into the algorithm, But if you want to click on a particular college, we'll show you. As a matter of fact, Peggy, let me just share my screen real quick because I can give some quick instruction in terms of.
Yeah, because you can basically do a deep dive into any, that's what we call it. And
Right.
he'll show you right now to any school. You just hit deep dive
Right. If I
and
want
you
to
can,
go, I'll just gonna give a school here that
oh, he's doing a, okay.
right. So if I want to take a deep dive on Babson, okay, again, I'm gonna get a lot of information that I think is relevant, but for these types of questions with the financial, we're going to tell you, okay, what is their SAI basis? In layman's terms, what's their business model? If they use an institutional business model, that almost always means they're looking at home equity. It almost always means they're looking at both sets of both households in divorced or separated situations. There are exceptions to both of those. The exceptions are baked into the software. Okay. If this school, as a matter of fact, let me give you a another example here. So let's pick on a I don't know, Delaware State, for example, if we want to take a deep dive there, right? I go to look at their financial information. Okay. They are a school that uses the federal methodology. So this tells me that they're definitely not going to be looking at my home equity. Okay. And they're only going to be looking at one household in divorced and separated families. Now, again, it's good that you guys are thinking about all these things. It's what you should be thinking about. At the end of the day, we only care, you know, what's this school going to cost me? What is it, where does it fall on my family's affordability profile, right? That's to simplify things, that's the name of the game. But honestly, Peggy, to your point, this is probably the best crowd we've had this fall in terms of astute questions and the volume. So it's again
Yeah,
makes
you guys
me
are all over it. It's
wanna
great. It's great. Okay, so let's dive into the CSS profile. When Matt's talking about institutional, basically what he means is they require this form. And on that page that he was showing you, down below it said FAFSA, yes, CSS profile, yes. It's all right there. So spend some time in there, play around in there. If you want a tutorial, from yours truly, you could even write into support and we could give you the link to it and really see what's in there. There's a lot of good stuff in there. So the CSS profile second form that a school like Bowdoin is going to require, not in lieu of the FAFSA, but with it. You have to do both. This form goes live October 1. That's a nice thing. You only have to remember that one date, October 1. And there's only about 250 schools that require it. Again, it's all built into our tool. You don't have to go find some list and make sure you're not missing out. It's all right there for you to see. They're mostly private schools, but not all of them. William and Mary and UVA and UNC Chapel Hill and Michigan. There's a few publics in there that require it as well. These schools, as I said earlier, are going to look at your primary home equity. They're gonna, except for a few like Matt, and we have that baked in as well. Like a school like U Chicago. It's like, yep, we require the CSS profile, but we just philosophically are not going to look at your home equity. Stanford, same thing, right? You're not going to know that. You're going to say, oh, CSS profile, that's meant. Nope, we have that built in. We have it baked in, even how much we see the schools look at home equity, if they do. Do they look at all of it, like a Boston College or Northwestern, or are they looking at it as a multiple of your income? We're doing all that heavy lifting in the background for you. The takeaway for you is these schools, most of them are going to look at your home equity as a liquid asset, part of it, all of it, maybe none of it. So that if you're sitting on a lot of home equity, that's a planning opportunity for you to realize the different schools and how they CSS schools might be cheaper for you and how a FAFSA school is going to differ. A FAFSA only. If you're divorced or separated, both parents are submitting forms. The custodial parent, per the FAFSA definition that I talked about, will be submitting the CSS profile with your child. The non-custodial parent submits the non-custodial profile. Similar form, but it's all just the non-custodial parent's information. If you're wondering, and I saw one question like, well, hey, the non-custodial parent's off the grid or is in jail or it isn't safe for my child to communicate with that other parent. All those things stink and we're sorry. But the good thing is there is a non-custodial waiver. and it's well worth your time if you have a legitimate reason that that other biological parent is not going to be involved, to submit that to the colleges. We help families with that every year. Sometimes they're heartbreaking stories, but you know what? If that's the case, you gotta let the colleges know, because if you don't submit that other profile, they're gonna say, we can't give you any of our money because your financial aid profile is not done. You haven't submitted everything we need. So just keep that in mind. Business owners, we talked about it. I talked about it with the OBBBA. The value of your business is asked about on the CSS profile. There's no exclusion like there is on the FAFSA. That's another planning opportunity. If you have a business that's has a high value, you're going to want to think about it. And many business owners work with us on a comprehensive basis because we know what the colleges are doing with business owners, and you can appeal that. And Matt's going to talk about appealing in about 1 second. So, and I've written that a couple times. Every webinar, people ask, hey, 2025 is different than 2024 and it's worse. Appeal, appeal, appeal. So Matt's going to do that in a minute. The upshot here is the CSS profile is a much longer form, much more complicated, and we're almost there. We're in the season, and Matt and I will be on this journey with you. A lot of our experts will also be on the journey. We all get deep into these forms, and we know them very well. We can help you do these in the best way, being honest, but putting your best foot forward. This is an easy one to get into. It's based on your child's college board credentials. And if your child SAT, PSAT, APs, that's all college board. So most kids have their email and password. That's how you're going into the form. But very important to submit both of these forms. All right, Matt, you want to finish
Yeah,
up
look,
here? I kind of
we're not going
teased
to get into
this.
the we're not going to get into the weeds here, guys, and I'm fully aware that you cannot make this slide out. Don't worry. I'm going to talk through this. This is the takeaway. When you're accepted into college and you are offered a financial aid award letter, essentially your financial offer, hey, if you want to come here, here's how much it costs. It is presented as a take it or leave it. You want to come here, this is the deal. In any other major investment that you make in your life, you're never accepting the first deal. You go to buy a home, it's always a negotiation. You go to buy a new car, of course, it's a negotiation. People just, consumers have a different mindset when it comes to college. It's one of the superpowers of the colleges themselves. Do not do that, guys. Do not do that. Okay. Just last year, we quite literally appealed, right? We can't use the word negotiation. There is a method to the madness. That is why you see successful appeals, not successful negotiations, but for millions of extra dollars last year. These are just a couple, right? 70,000 more dollars at Colby, right? Per year. Another $50,000 more at Tufts per year. Another, $65,000 more at Emory, per year. And big schools, small schools, state schools, private schools. There's no regional bias here, right? We are never accepting that first deal. Now, again, there's a method to the madness, right? As a matter of fact, and Peg can back me up on this, if you say I'd like to negotiate with more money directly to a college, that's probably the end of that quote unquote negotiation, right? They're very peculiar when it comes to vernacular and just again how you need to go about this. And you got to know, well, should my student be doing this appeal? Should I be doing it as a parent? Should I be doing it, having this conversation with the financial aid office, with the admissions office? Is it both? And what's the answer to that question? It depends. It depends on the college. It depends on the situation, right? What is the ideal timing? It depends. But the takeaway for today, and Peg and I will do hour-long presentations on just this part of the process. But the takeaway for today is do not accept that first deal. And the appeal, putting yourself in a position for a successful appeal starts now. It starts during the application process. It starts during the admissions process, right? So we can draw a straight line between putting ourselves in a good position to have a successful appeal with all the decisions we make now, right? In July, in August, in September, October, before everything's put in, we can draw a straight line to our likelihood of having a successful appeal and how much we're actually going to get. But that's the headline. Um, So yeah, that's my takeaway for there, Peggy. Actually, let me just it gives me another good opportunity to flash the kind of platform here before we go into our closing remarks. But once you are accepted into these colleges, what's going to happen is, well, first we have our financial aid form. So when you tell us where you're applying to college, we'll tell you here's all the due dates. Here's what who you know what's required. Is it just a FAFSA? Is it the CSS profile? Does it, the non-custodial parent have to submit their information in, right? Do they require the IDoc? We won't tell you what that is tonight. We won't give you another acronym. Right, we have our line by line FAFSA videos, line by line CSS profile videos. But when we're accepted, you're going to upload your award. We're going to translate it, but then we're going to tell you, did you get a good deal? How likely is it that you can appeal for more money at Boston College, right? We know that the business model of Boston College is to under award families $10,000 on average in need-based financial aid. So we want to help you understand not only which colleges you should definitely go back to, but how much more you should be asking for, among other things. So again, it's just something else that you can leverage within the platform here. But what I would say, guys, something that we have been saying ad nauseum, I've been beating my team over the head with it because it's been something that's personally helped me recently. I kind of latched on to this comment, and that is action absorbs anxiety, right? That really helped me. And I think for just about all of you going through this process, especially for the first time, but it's just overwhelming. You're freaking anxious. Where should we apply? What if my kid doesn't get in? How the hell are we going to afford this? What are these schools actually going to cost me? Right? It's anxiety inducing, right? It's your kids and your money. Like if you weren't a little bit worked up, we would be worried about you. Okay. But that's why we say action absorbs anxiety. This is the action you want to take tonight. Book some time to talk with us. If you book a time slot, by the end of tonight, it's free. We can talk to you to say, tell us more about your situation. We will tell you here is next best steps. Okay. Take advantage of that tonight, right? And that's all you have to do. That's your starting point. Action absorbs anxiety. You'll feel better. Even if we don't have too many times this week. I guess there's two more slots for tomorrow there. But even if you go book a time for us next week, no problem. Um, and you'll feel better. Be like, okay, I got it on the calendar. I have an action item. I know next steps. Now, so you can learn more about our comprehensive services here in this link. Peggy, I'm assuming you put that link in the chat here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, I was busy doing the
So
questions. I'll do it
keep
right
it
now.
visual. So this is going in the chat right here. Again, you can learn more about how we work with families, but don't overthink it. Book some time to talk to us. If you are a DIYer and you know who you are, we're not going to talk you, out of who you are, and just upgrade to the premium version of our software so you can find out, put an unlimited number of colleges in there, search who's going to give you the most money, have access to every private scholarship in the country, have access to our member only office hours, our member only workshops. It's $5, guys. It's $4.99, so don't overthink that one. But still talk to us, right? I would say even if you are the DIYer, still take a minute and talk to us. But Peggy, I know you have some strong feelings around this. Why don't you kind of chime in with your thoughts?
Yeah, and as I said at the beginning, just like parent to parent, it's important not to drift through this. So you just have to kind of check where you're at right now. We covered a lot of stuff. Some of you might be like, yeah, I heard you guys talk about this. This helps solidify it. So it might be the first time you're hearing some of this stuff and you might be overwhelmed. I love Matt's phrase that he picked up along the way, what he said, action absorbs anxiety. So instead of feeling like sometimes people feel paralyzed, they don't know which way to go. That's what we came up with. Let it talk to us. Talk to one of our experts. Set up your free MyCap account so we can kind of see, families fall into different buckets, students fall into different buckets. Let us see that and explain to you kind of where you fall. And then we'll absolutely share how we can support you. But as Matt said, if you're like a total DIYer and you just need that figured out and you want to be in our community and pay your $4.99 and make all your own spreadsheets and spend the hours and hours, we're not going to beg you not to do that. If that's your jam, go for it. But people fall all along the continuum of like, that's what I want to do, to I just can't even think about this. I don't even have time and everything in between. So just book that time and chat with us. And it'll be time well spent. If you have a question, I mean, we had so many questions. We just haven't we just there was no way we could get to all of them, right? So we did our best. We can answer that question and then we can give you, you'll walk away with an insight about what kind of family you are and where your student falls, and then you'll hear about how we can support you in whatever way it is. So it's 15 minutes. And honestly, our pros will usually spend more time with you if you're having a good conversation. They're not going to cut you off at 15 minutes, and they're going to be happy to chat with you. So if that helps you feel like, all right, that was a great webinar, now I book this, and that will give me my next step, we're here. We got it. We got you covered.
Peggy, listen to this before you go. Katrina says, this has been the most helpful information I've received since starting this journey. Capital letters, thank you. I can breathe. So,
Thank you for saying that, Katrina, because it's we're talking to all of you, and that's why I love the Q&A, because I feel like we're in it with you guys, because we really are. That's really
and-
how we view it. So thank you for that comment.
no, we
And
appreciate
honestly,
this.
we've heard it before, and we try really hard to make this. It's a hard topic, and it can be stressful, and there's a lot of emotion around it. But we try and make it fun. And you know what? You can make life can be fun. It's all about mindset. So we
That's
do
it.
our best to help you guys. So
Yep,
book your
100%.
meetings, and everybody, have a great evening, and we'll see everybody
Have
next
a
time.
great evening. Sorry to those questions we didn't get to. Please don't take it personal. We did our best, but again, that's where the catch-all is. Book some time, talk to us. We'll do it in a one-on-one setting that we can provide way more value. Anyhow, so thanks everybody. And by the way, we weren't for those of you that follow along. We're not this complimentary to every audience. We kind of call it how it is, right, Peggy? So this
Honestly, some of them I'm kind of twiddling my thumbs, thinking about what I need to make for dinner. So I love these ones where I get to work. So thanks everybody for that, and you get even more value out of our webinar. So it's a win-win.
Bye guys.
All
Thank you. Thank
right,
you.
have a good night, everybody.
Bye.